Make that big boss less special. It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level. Second level gaming. Second level.
Hello, Internet, and welcome back to our coverage of Pixelpop 2018. And I'm hanging out with Robin, the creator, sole creator of Line Wobbler, which is the most insane game that I think I've ever seen, let alone at one of our festivals here. I would love for you to give us an elevator pitch on exactly what Line Wobbler is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Line Wobbler is a one-dimensional dungeon crawler, and it's played entirely on this 5-meter-long LED strip behind you, and it's controlled with this weird spring joystick I've built, and it's inspired by a doorstopper spring.
Wow. So I played a little bit earlier on, and you said something kind of funny to me earlier, because we were trying to track you down because you hadn't been in front of the thing, and you said, honestly, you just kind of set it and forget it. You just like let it go. You have like a very simple instruction list by the side, and funnily enough, when we were up here, I read the list, I instantly figured out how to play it, and I had a blast. I thought it was really fun, which I think is amazing. Was the simplicity something that just was like a byproduct of the idea of it being like a single line, or was that something you had in mind to begin with? Or?
Yeah, it was kind of half and half. So to start with, we definitely had the idea to just make an LED strip game and use this spring joystick as an input, right? And so the whole game kind of appeared out of this constraint of having these two elements. And then the difficulty of kind of making a good game is kind of how do you make the player understand what is going on? And if you only have 1D, like a one line, you don't have any textures, you don't have any text, you just have colors.
Right.
So that's kind of tricky. So I kind of deliberately limited the game to be like just a few elements, you know, and then the color scheme is just green is good, red is bad. It's like a traffic light in a way, right? So in that way, I spend a lot of focus on making it easy to understand because all the rest of the game is already kind of super weird. So then, that people can understand what's going on, and you can even figure it out entirely by yourself. But just for sometimes when you get stuck, like sometimes people are too careful with the controller, so they never shake it, so they never figure out what the attack is. So that's why I have this one line there, just so people
wobble
get
away.
Unstuck. Yeah.
So what is it like? What makes a guy sit down one day, just in your armchair, you're sipping your tea, and you go, you know what? I want to make a dungeon crawler out of LED lights. Like, where does that even gestate from?
It doesn't really, it's not a really long thought process. So this game was originally made in a game jam, right? So 48 hours to come up with a new game idea. And I had the idea for the controller first, and that came from a YouTube video where a cat plays with a doorstopper spring. I don't know if you've seen it, like it reaches under the door and goes brrrr.
Yes.
And wow, this is cool. Even animals have fun with this. So like, humans must too. And so it took me a while to figure out what sensors I would use and so on. So I had that figured out, and then I went to a game jam to try to do something.
And most game jams are traditionally like going to be, well, I don't want to use traditional video games as the term, but I mean traditional video games. What kind of a game jam did you go to where they were sort of saying, use LED strips, use alternative controllers?
Yeah, so that was a game jam in Denmark.
Okay.
So I'm based in London, so it's not too far. But the organizers there, they're also kind of keen to go more experimental.
Go a little crazy.
So they actually brought a big crate of like joysticks, buttons, and weird sensors, but also an LED strip. So I said, okay, let's try this.
That's the one I want.
Yeah, and then just by using that LED strip, kind of the game idea kind of forced itself into existence, basically.
Because of the limited tools that you have to play with.
Exactly.
I guess,
we had like this little debug, like this kind of one light, and it's like, we to see if the spring works at all, because I wasn't quite sure.
Right.
And it turns out, you can control the spring, the light, and then when you let go of the spring, it kind of wobbles, and the movement gets kind of chaotic and erratic, and so I said, this looks kind of violent almost. So
it's
it
like an
could be
attack. Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
And then if it's an attack, you have enemies.
Yeah?
So now you have movement and enemies, and what else can you do?
So it just kind of started with a small thing and then just kind of grew from you just literally trying to figure out what went.
And so that's also usually my kind of design philosophy. It's not like a general thing that everyone should do, but I like to start with like a sensor
idea.
or like a weird interaction, a game mechanic, and like if I use physical sensors, it's like an actual mechanic, like pulling or pushing, and then trying to build up and see if there's a game hidden in that mechanic. And
that's amazing.
For Line Wobbler, it worked out perfectly. So that was
it's definitely
great.
like I said, it's definitely one of the more unique things I've ever seen or played. But it did feel really intuitive right off the bat, which I thought was really kind of impressive. I do understand that there's been quite a lot of attention for the Line Wobbler as well.
Right.
I've seen your there's a couple of awards that have been thrown your way. Someone, I think Carol was showing me something to do with a Christmas tree. Would you care to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I made the game originally like about 3 years ago now. So I showed it at a lot of events, and that was quite good fun. But also because I showed it at so many places, now people know about it and in the right space. So when someone thought, okay, we need to make something interactive for our train station. So somehow they remembered Line Wobbler. We said, oh, this kind of looks like a Christmas tree decoration. It's kind of almost an insult, but it worked in this case. So they said, oh yeah, we can come up with something cool. And so then we collaborated with like a metalworking company, and I needed to figure out how to make this game longer. So in the end, it was like a 6 meter tall tree. It was like a 25 meter long spiral. So it's like 30 foot or something.
I'm bad at math, but I'll go with you. Yeah.
And so that was a cool installation, and it was in King's Cross Station in London.
Lovely.
So it's like Harry Potter was filmed there. So like it's
nice
a big
and
station.
Magical, right?
Yeah, it's
pretty
cool,
good.
and it was in a really nice spot. So a lot of people played it. That was a really good kind of play test for me as well, because like it's not only people who like games that goes there, like which is normal for these kind of events, but also like just the general public.
General public.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a good stress test as well, because they didn't really hold back, it's just unsupervised settings. So I had to go a few times and fix things. But it's, when you do hardware games, it's always like you expect it to break.
Speaking of breaking in hardware games and things like that, I mean, what we're looking at here is an alternative controller game. And traditionally, alternative controller games don't tend to monetize that well, because you really... No one's going to necessarily go out and buy this entire installation. I mean, there might be some, I'm sure, that would buy that. So, I mean... It's an amazing accomplishment. Do you just kind of like charge appearance fees? Do you sell the blueprints to it? Like, what is it? How do you monetize something like
so
or do you need to?
Yeah, so at the moment, so I'm trying to see if there is a business model in this. So I just made it for fun, as I said, in a game jam first.
It does look like it would make a cool like Christmas toy for kids and stuff,
At the moment, I'm working a lot with museums and festivals, actually. So mostly like kids museums or interactivity muesums, some
science museums,
science museums.
Stuff,
and they commissioned me to show this, or they asked me,
Gotcha.
Can we show this? How much would it cost? And then I need to come up with a number. So it's the first time I've done installations as well.
Right.
So it's been quite a tricky experience.
Learning experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's been fun so far, and it's been popular as well. So I'm on my way to do this full time. And then I'm also talking to arcade machine companies. So like maybe this could be an arcade machine one day.
I could absolutely see that.
Right?
Actually,
I mean, it's like a very minimalist thing, but it definitely looks weird. And I think that's the right thing for an arcade. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
maybe
you're
in the future.
I'm thinking like, sorry, my mind just went blank for a second. I'm like, this would be actually super dope in an arcade.
Right?
I would totally play that if it was in an arcade.
Yeah, and then as a consumer product, maybe. I mean, right now it's way too much work and cost per unit to really bring the cost down to like, whatever a little toy this would cost as a toy. So right now it's way too much. But like for a museum setting or a bar or like an arcade, I could totally see this working. So that's what I'm working towards too.
I think that's a great idea, actually. I think that's the perfect future for it. Is there sort of anything you've learned here that you'd like to carry forward to a different version of the game, maybe with more than a single light strip, or kind of anything you're gestating up there for a future? Yeah,
so I mean, I have like tons of ideas for this concept as well. So like kind of mutations of Line Wobbler. So I don't know if you've seen on playgrounds, you have these little kids' toys that are basically a giant spring, and it's like a motorcycle thing or something.
Yes, I'm familiar.
And so this could be a controller for Line Wobbler, right? So you sit on it, and you kind of bend forward and back.
I love that idea so much.
And then I don't know about the attack yet, maybe it's like shaking your butt a bit.
I guess. You just twerk on the motorbike.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, why not?
And I think that could be super good fun, also for adults, like when they're a bit drunk or something.
Absolutely.
And then, and it's like a lot of things. So I've been experimenting with laser projectors. Like, so my idea is like I want to build a massive version of this. So like the Christmas tree was a good start, but I want to have an entire tower of Line Wobbler, right? So the tallest game in the world. That's what I.
That's an awesome plan.
So then it's like looking at laser projectors. So like maybe it doesn't make sense to have 100 meters of LED strips. So maybe it needs to be some other way. So laser projectors. Then multiplayer is the thing I'm looking into. So that's like branching could be fun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just yesterday I saw this weird cube that it has like mirror images inside, so it's like this infinity cube thing, like like infinity mirrors.
Yeah, infinity mirror.
So that could be cool, like like a thing where it goes inside.
You thought a lot about this, I can say.
Yeah, and then also I'm working on new ideas. So like this kind of going to game jams, still working on hardware, and trying to come up with other weird, wacky ideas, and then see what works.
So lots of ideas in the works, lots of thoughts gestating in there. Definitely a lot of paths you could take it down. Have you ever, because this reminds me a little bit of a game actually that we've both played and loved. Did you ever get to play the game Limelight? You ever heard of that?
Line of Light?
Limelight. Limelight. It's literally a light on a line, and it's kind of like a singular light. It's a video game. It's not like a real thing.
It's on Steam, or?
It's an indie game. It's I think it's on Steam. iOS, it's on everything,
Yeah.
And basically it travels down, then it opens up to various branching paths. The enemies are red dots that come through.
Yes.
And this is a relatively new game, so you definitely predated
so
here.
I have talked to the developer, and he was inspired by Line Wobbler.
Really?
So it is that way around, yeah.
That's amazing.
But it's cool, you know. I mean, like I'm all for more 1D games. I don't want to possess the entire genre.
No.
In fact, so there's another game called Rotoring. It's like a circular game on LEDs, and it's like a little puzzle game. But what he has to deal with is always like, people come to him, this looks like Line Wobbler. And so it's kind of annoying as a developer to be always compared to something.
Right.
But it's kind of nice that it's now opened up as a kind of a genre. Like
yeah, I mean, it's fantastic.
Haven't been used to much before.
Because we learned about this from Carol, the sort of the head lady in charge, I suppose, is our boss tag lady. But like we had played Limelight like previously, and we'd loved the mechanic of it. So instantly, this reminded me of that only because I played that first.
Yeah, of course.
But the idea of it just kind of like it's such a simple concept that just you can take it so far, which is what the most beautiful thing about it is. Aesthetically, it's just so kind of, I don't know, it's just so pleasing to go through, simple. What was the hardest part of putting something like this together to begin with? Because I know you had a time period, you had 48 hours to put it together.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I mean, the game concept was fairly solid right away. The most difficult part definitely is like the hardware itself. So like, especially because in the beginning I used these actual door stopper springs, but it turns out they're way too weak, especially when like small kids play it.
Yeah,
or drunk people.
Yeah, or drunk.
Yeah. So when they pull really strongly, you know, the spring bends and it kind of stays bent. You know, like it's kind of bends out the metal.
Stay on an angle or something.
Yeah. And then there's like this sensor in the top. So if you pull up, then maybe the cable rips. So getting this solid enough, there was quite a bit of work.
Did you make the spring yourself?
Yeah, so this is actually now a spring I had made for me in a spring factory.
Oh, lovely.
Purpose built. So they were quite confused when I went there. It's like, what? We build springs for cars and doors, you know.
Right.
What is a joystick? But then once they got into the idea, they were quite keen, and like I learned all about like, you know, spring oscillation frequencies and diameters and different materials. It's quite interesting, but it's like an entire world that I had no idea of existed. I mean, of course it does, but that was cool. So like, it's all this kind of steps you need to take to kind of make this.
Try and make it the perfect experience.
Yeah.
I did notice that the joystick does feel very sturdy. It feels comfortable. It feels intuitive. I was giving it some welly when I was going through, and I didn't feel like it was going to bend or break at any point. It's very comfortable to play with. The light's obviously a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
Have you put any thought into, let's say, like accessibility options, like colorblind people or things like that?
Yeah,
like
I had
changing the lights.
Yeah, I haven't done too much in that yet. I mean, it would be easy to do from code.
Right. Just change the LED light.
I did have a handful colorblind people come, and so it's
were they okay with it, or were they
kind of? So there's like some levels where there's enemies inside lava, so it's red on top of orange.
Hard to see.
And that is very hard to see for them. I think otherwise it's fine. Like even green red hasn't been an issue.
Right.
But that specific spot is kind of tricky for them.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering about it. It's that because there's like, except for when it explodes, the color palette tends to be green, red, orange, white, right?
Exactly.
So it's just kind of a question that I had.
No, exactly. Right. So that might be a good thing to look into as well.
It's definitely, we work a lot with a charity called Able Gamers, and they're kind of huge on like basically accessibility of all kinds, whether it's like a limited amount of limbs that you have to play a game with, or something like visual impairment, like colorblind. My co-host running the camera right now is colorblind as well, so he can't play something as as popular as like Battlefield because the enemies look the same as the teammates, which is not great in a game like that, right?
No, yeah.
So it's just something we ask sometimes, especially when there's a lot of reds and greens and stuff involved.
Yeah. Cool. No, it's definitely good to keep in mind. Yeah.
So what has been, would you say, so far, your best experience with this, taking this on the road or even like keeping it down? What's been the one moment that's just kind of struck out at you and been like pure joy and made you sit down and go, yes, that was worth it?
Right. I mean, I've shown this at a lot of places now, so they're all kind of different in good ways. I think my favorite spot maybe is also because it was at GDC, I think, in the Game Developer Conference in San Francisco. So I showed it there at the Experimental Gameplay Workshop. And there's a big talk, it's like 500 people in the room. It was fantastic. I was like super nervous. But then one of the first players to come over and play it right away was Tim Schafer.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, you know, Monkey Island is like my childhood game. So,
right.
So I'm like, oh my God, yes.
That's amazing.
And he loved it. So like he was like also like, yeah, I want to buy this. And so like I said, oh yeah, I have a backup copy here. Like you can have it. Just like, I mean, I got him to pay like the hardware cost for me, but like, you know. So now there's one copy of this in Double Fine, in Double Fine's office, and they put it around the Christmas tree as well. So,
oh, wow.
So that was super cool. So that was like my fanboy moment. And it was also kind of like validation for me as a developer. Like when I showed it at that GDC, it was like my first international exhibit, was it? A lot of developers that I knew of like came, like Lucas Pope, who made Papers, Please. He was like super, said, yeah, this is cool, and asked, yeah, what would you change? And like you as a esteemed developer, and it's like, no, this is perfect. And so that was a good moment. So like, says, oh yeah, this is the thing now, and like
kind of made you feel a little like,
yeah, definitely.
a little bit
made me feel very good. Yeah. So then I said, okay, maybe this is really a thing, and I should really push that further and see where I can take it.
I think it's come really far by the looks of it, and in great ways. I mean, for a start, you're in the middle of St. Louis with it, which is pretty random for a game like this. It is a whole lot of fun, and I mean, do you have since these videos are going to be going up pretty shortly after the festival here? Do you know of any appearances that you're definitely hitting up here in the next couple months? Maybe we can talk about.
There's not too much planned actually in the near future. I mean, there is a big exhibition coming up in London, in the UK, at the Victoria and Albert Museum. So it's a design museum, and they have a big exhibition on video games on from September for half a year. So then Line Wobbler is going to be part of that, so that should be fun.
And if we wanted to follow you or your future endeavors, where would we go to on the internet to find that stuff out? You can tell it right to the camera so they know where to go.
Yeah, so I'm most active on Twitter, so it's at Robin_B. The game itself is on linewobbler.com. And on wobblylabs.com is my other
Wobbly
stuff.
Labs.
Yeah, Wobbly Labs.
Robin, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. It's a great game.
Yeah.
It's very unique, and I really enjoyed it. So you guys definitely need to go anywhere that this game shows up and check it out, or at very least, go and watch some footage of it online so you can see exactly what we're talking about. We do have some B-roll that we've been splicing in, but it's really hard to explain without actually getting your hand on the Spring controller and trying it for yourself. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.